The Nowata Methodist Church is happy to produce a lot of different content for the edification of Christ's church throughout the world. This daily segment that you're listening to right now corresponds with the Daily Bible Reading Challenge, which is hosted by Christ Church in Moscow, Idaho. If you want to download the list of readings that they publish for yourself or learn more about this challenge, this initiative, go to BibleReading.ChristKirk.com. I'm Jeffrey Rickman. I'm the pastor here in Nowata, and I read from the Berean Standard Bible, which you can also find at Berean.Bible. Consider subscribing to this podcast to be a part of this daily effort to grow in familiarity with and love of God's holy word. Let's dive in for today. Hey, I'm glad you're with me. I'm glad you're going to be reading through the scriptures with me. We've covered a lot of ground so far. We're going to finish Deuteronomy today, and it is going to be glorious. This very first chapter up is one of the most interesting. It kind of describes an ancient Hebrew worldview that I believe is true in a lot of ways, that a lot of people, they don't even conceive of this. So pay attention right out of the gate. But then we're going to close with another psalm and another piece of Hebrews. It should be great. So I hope you really enjoy this. I hope this brings you closer to the Lord. All right, we're at Deuteronomy 32. Let's dive in. Give ear, O heavens, and I will speak. Hear, O earth, the words of my mouth. Let my teaching fall like rain, and my speech settle like dew, like gentle rain on new grass, like showers on tender plants. For I will proclaim the name of the Lord, ascribe greatness to our God. He is the rock, his work is perfect. All his ways are just, a God of faithfulness, without injustice, righteous and upright is he. His people have acted corruptly towards him. The spot on them is not that of his children, but of a perverse and crooked generation. Is this how you repay the Lord, O foolish and senseless people? Is he not your Father and Creator? Has he not made you and established you? Remember the days of old. Consider the years long past. Ask your father, and he will tell you. Your elders, and they will inform you. When the Most High gave the nations their inheritance, when he divided the sons of man, he set the boundaries of the peoples according to the number of the sons of God. But the Lord's portion is his people, Jacob his allotted inheritance. He found him in a desert land, in a barren, howling wilderness. He surrounded him, he instructed him, he guarded him as the apple of his eye. As an eagle stirs up its nest and hovers over its young, he spread his wings to catch them and carried them on his pinions. The Lord alone led him, and no foreign god was with him. He made him ride on the heights of the land and fed him the produce of the field. He nourished him with honey from the rock and oil from the flinty crag, with curds from the herd and milk from the flock, with the fat of lambs, with rams from Bashan and goats, with the choicest grains of wheat, from the juice of the finest grapes you drank the wine. But Jeshurun grew fat and kicked, becoming fat, bloated, and gorged. He abandoned the God who made him and scorned the rock of his salvation. They provoked his jealousy with foreign gods. They enraged him with abominations. They sacrificed to demons, not to God, to gods they had not known, to newly arrived gods, which your fathers did not fear. You ignored the rock who brought you forth. You forgot the God who gave you birth. When the Lord saw this, he rejected them, provoked to anger by his sons and daughters. He said, I will hide my face from them. I will see what will be their end. For they are a perverse generation, children of unfaithfulness. They have provoked my jealousy by that which is not God. They have enraged me with their worthless idols. So I will make them jealous by those who are not a people. I will make them angry by a nation without understanding. For a fire has been kindled by my anger, and it burns to the depths of Sheol. It consumes the earth and its produce, and scorches the foundations of the mountains. I will heap disasters upon them. I will spend my arrows against them. They will be wasted from hunger and ravaged by pestilence and bitter plague. I will send the fangs of wild beasts against them, with the venom of vipers that slither in the dust. Outside the sword will take their children, and inside terror will strike the young man and the young woman, the infant and the gray-haired man. I would have said that I would cut them to pieces and blot out their memory from mankind, if I had not dreaded the taunt of the enemy, lest their adversaries misunderstand and say, "Our own hand has prevailed. It was not the Lord who did all this." Israel is a nation devoid of counsel, with no understanding among them. If only they were wise, they would understand it. They would comprehend their fate. How could one man pursue 1,000, or two put 10,000 to flight, unless their rock had sold them, unless the Lord had given them up? For their rock is not like our rock, even our enemies concede. But their vine is from the vine of Sodom, and from the fields of Gomorrah. Their grapes are poisonous, their clusters are bitter, their wine is the venom of serpents, the deadly poison of cobras. Have I not stored up these things, sealed up within my vaults? Vengeance is mine, I will repay. In due time their foot will slip, for their day of disaster is near, and their doom is coming quickly. For the Lord will vindicate his people and have compassion on his servants when he sees that their strength is gone and no one remains, slave or free. He will say, "Where are their gods, the rock in which they took refuge, which ate the fat of their sacrifices and drank the wine of their drink offerings? Let them rise up and help you. Let them give you shelter. See now that I am he. There is no God besides me. I bring death and I give life. I wound and I heal, and there is no one who can deliver from my hand. For I lift up my hand to heaven and declare, as surely as I live forever, when I sharpen my flashing sword and my hand grasps it in judgment, I will take vengeance on my adversaries and repay those who hate me. I will make my arrows drunk with blood, while my sword devours flesh, the blood of the slain and captives, the heads of the enemy leaders. Rejoice, O heavens, with him, and let all God's angels worship him. Rejoice, O nations, with his people, for he will avenge the blood of his children. He will take vengeance on his adversaries and repay those who hate him. He will cleanse his land and his people. Then Moses came with Joshua son of Nun and recited all the words of this song in the hearing of the people. When Moses had finished reciting all these words to all Israel, he said to them, "Take to heart all these words I testify among you today, so that you may command your children to carefully follow all the words of this law. For they are not idle words to you, because they are your life, and by them you will live long in the land that you are crossing the Jordan to possess." On that same day the Lord said to Moses, "Go up into the Abarim range to Mount Nebo, in the land of Moab across from Jericho, and view the land of Canaan, which I am giving to the Israelites as their own possession. And there on the mountain that you climb, you will die, and be gathered to your people, just as your brother Aaron died on Mount Hor and was gathered to his people. For at the waters of Meribah Kadesh in the wilderness of Zin, both of you broke faith with me among the Israelites by failing to treat me as holy in their presence. Although you shall see from a distance the land that I am giving the Israelites, you shall not enter it. Deuteronomy 33. This is the blessing that Moses, the man of God, pronounced upon the Israelites before his death. He said, "The Lord came from Sinai and dawned upon us from Seir. He shone forth from Mount Paran and came with myriads of holy ones, with flaming fire at his right hand. Surely you love the people. All the holy ones are in your hand, and they sit down at your feet. Each receives your words. The law that Moses gave us, the possession of the assembly of Jacob. So the Lord became king in Jeshurun, when the leaders of the people gathered, when the tribes of Israel came together. Let Reuben live and not die, nor his men be few." And concerning Judah, he said, "O Lord, hear the cry of Judah and bring him to his people. With his own hands he defends his cause, but may you be a help against his foes." Concerning Levi, he said, "Give your Thummim to Levi, and your Urim to your godly one, whom you tested at Massah and contested at the waters of Meribah." He said of his father and mother, "I do not consider them." He disregarded his brothers and did not know his own sons, for he kept your word and maintained your covenant. He will teach your ordinances to Jacob and your law to Israel. He will set incense before you and whole burnt offerings on your altar. Bless his substance, O Lord, and accept the work of his hands. Smash the loins of those who rise against him and of his foes, so they can rise no more. Concerning Benjamin, he said, "May the beloved of the Lord rest secure in him. God shields him all day long, and upon his shoulders he rests." Concerning Joseph, he said, "May his land be blessed by the Lord, with the precious dew from heaven above, and the deep waters that lie beneath, with the bountiful harvest from the sun, and the abundant yield of the seasons, with the best of the ancient mountains, and the bounty of the everlasting hills, with the choice gifts of the land and everything in it, and with the favor of him who dwelt in the burning bush. May these rest on the head of Joseph, and crown the brow of the prince of his brothers. His majesty is like a firstborn bull, and his horns are like those of a wild ox. With them he will gore the nations, even to the ends of the earth. Such are the myriads of Ephraim, and such are the thousands of Manasseh." Concerning Zebulun, he said, "Rejoice, Zebulun, in your journeys, and Issachar in your tents. They will call the peoples to a mountain. There they will offer sacrifices of righteousness, for they will feast on the abundance of the seas and the hidden treasures of the sand." Concerning Gad, he said, "Blessed is he who enlarges the domain of Gad. He lies down like a lion and tears off an arm or a head. He chose the best land for himself, because a ruler's portion was reserved for him there. He came with the leaders of the people. He administered the Lord's justice and his ordinances for Israel." Concerning Dan, he said, "Dan is a lion's cub, leaping out of Bashan." Concerning Naphtali, he said, "Naphtali is abounding with favor, full of blessing of the Lord. He shall take possession of the sea and the south." And concerning Asher, he said, "May Asher be the most blessed of sons. May he be the most favored among his brothers, and dip his foot in oil. May the bolts of your gate be iron and bronze, and may your strength match your days. There is none like the God of Jeshurun, who rides the heavens to your aid, and the clouds in his majesty. The eternal God is your dwelling place, and underneath are the everlasting arms. He drives out the enemy before you, giving the command, 'Destroy him.' So Israel dwells securely. The fountain of Jacob lives untroubled, in a land of grain and new wine, where even the heavens drip with dew. Blessed are you, O Israel. Who is like you, a people saved by the Lord? He is the shield that protects you, the sword in which you boast. Your enemies will cower before you, and you shall trample their high places. All right, final chapter of Deuteronomy. Chapter 34. Then Moses went up from the plains of Moab to Mount Nebo, to the top of Pisgah, which faces Jericho, and the Lord showed him the whole land, from Gilead as far as Dan, all of Naphtali, the land of Ephraim and Manasseh, all the land of Judah as far as the western sea, the Negev, and the region from the valley of Jericho, the city of palms, all the way to Zoar. And the Lord said to him, This is the land that I swore to give Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob when I said, I will give it to your descendants. I have let you see it with your own eyes, but you will not cross into it. So Moses, the servant of the Lord, died there in the land of Moab, as the Lord had said. And he buried him in a valley in the land of Moab facing Beth Peor, and no one to this day knows the location of his grave. Moses was 120 years old when he died, yet his eyes were not weak, and his vitality had not diminished. The Israelites grieved for Moses in the plains of Moab 30 days, until the time of weeping and mourning for Moses came to an end. Now Joshua, son of Nun, was filled with the spirit of wisdom because Moses had laid his hands on him. So the Israelites obeyed him and did as the Lord had commanded Moses. Since that time no prophet has arisen in Israel like Moses, whom the Lord knew face to face. No prophet who did all the signs and wonders that the Lord sent Moses to do in the land of Egypt to Pharaoh and to all his officials and all his land, and no prophet who performed all the mighty acts of power and awesome deeds that Moses did in the sight of all Israel. Now Hebrews chapter 3, this is New Testament. Therefore, holy brothers who share in the heavenly calling, set your focus on Jesus, the apostle and high priest whom we confess. He was faithful to the one who appointed him, just as Moses was faithful in all God's house. For Jesus has been counted worthy of greater glory than Moses, just as the builder of a house has greater honor than the house itself. And every house is built by someone, but God is the builder of everything. Now Moses was faithful as a servant in all God's house, testifying to what would be spoken later. But Christ is faithful as the Son over God's house, and we are his house if we hold firmly to our confidence and the hope of which we boast. Therefore, as the Holy Spirit says, today, if you hear his voice, do not harden your hearts, as you did in the rebellion, in the day of testing in the wilderness, where your fathers tested and tried me, and for 40 years saw my works. Therefore I was angry with that generation, and I said, their hearts are always going astray, and they have not known my ways. So I swore on oath in my anger, they shall never enter my rest. See to it, brothers, that none of you has a wicked heart of unbelieving that turns away from the living God. But exhort one another daily, as long as it is called today, so that none of you may be hardened by sin's deceitfulness. We have come to share in Christ if we hold firmly to the end the assurance we had at first. As it has been said, today if you hear his voice, do not harden your hearts as you did in the rebellion. For who were the ones who heard and rebelled? Were they not all those Moses led out of Egypt? And with whom was God angry for 40 years? Was it not those who sinned, whose bodies fell in the wilderness? And to whom did he swear that they would never enter his rest? Was it not to those who disobeyed? So we see that it was because of their unbelief that they were unable to enter. And finally, Psalm 95. Come, let us sing for joy to the Lord. Let us shout to the rock of our salvation. Let us enter his presence with thanksgiving. Let us make a joyful noise to him in song. For the Lord is a great God, a great King above all gods. In his hand are the depths of the earth, and the mountain peaks belong to him. The sea is his, for he made it, and his hands formed the dry land. O come, let us worship and bow down. Let us kneel before the Lord our Maker. For he is our God, and we are the people of his pasture, the sheep under his care. Today, if you hear his voice, do not harden your hearts, as you did at Meribah, in the day at Massah in the wilderness, where your fathers tested me and tried me, though they had seen my work. For 40 years I was angry with that generation, and I said, they are a people whose hearts go astray, and they have not known my ways. So I swore on oath in my anger, they shall never enter my rest. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. All right, well, thank you, friends, for joining me. God bless you. I hope this has been a good time for you. I kind of, Deuteronomy 32, a lot of that was tearing into the people, and I said that I was a part of that worldview. The part I was focusing in on was the part where God assigned different heavenly powers to govern over different peoples of the earth, but then he adopted the Israelites as his own people directly. And he's the Lord of heaven and earth. So these other heavenly beings, powers, called them the sons of God in that part, they were originally in submission to God, but there was a heavenly rebellion. So if you haven't ever heard about that before, Michael Heiser is the main guy that pointed these themes out to me in the Old Testament and made a lot of sense of for me. So anyway, these other competing spiritual powers and principalities are still about today, but Christ has bound Satan and his minions so that we might win souls to Christ. And so that's where we are in history now before Christ returns in glory. So anyway, the scriptures point to that. A lot of this will continue coming together for you. So God bless you as you continue attending upon his word. I'm not going to put one of these out tomorrow. It's a catch-up day. So if you've kind of fallen behind and you need to catch up, go ahead and do that. And I'll be seeing you Monday. All right. God bless you. I'll see you later.